Chapter 3. But the goldfish was real, and when her parents returned from the fields for dinner, they were not happy to learn that Minley had spent her money on it. How could you spend your money on that? Ma said, slapping the rice bowls on the table. On something so useless, and we will have to feed it. There is barely enough rice for us as it is. I will share my rice with it, Minley said quickly. The goldfish man said that it will bring fortune to our house. Fortune, Ma said. You spent half the money in our house. Now, wife, Ba said, sitting quietly. It was Minley's money. It was hers to do with as she wished. Money must be used sometime. What use is money in a bowl? It is more useful than a goldfish in a bowl, her mother said shortly. Who knows, Ba said. Maybe it will bring fortune to our house. Another impossible dream, Ma said, looking at the plain rice in her bowl with bitterness. It will take more than a goldfish to bring fortune to our house. Like what? Minley asked. What do we need to bring fortune here? Ah, Ba said. That is a question you will have to ask the old man of the moon. The old man of the moon again? Minley said, and she looked at her father. But you said you would tell me the old man of the moon story again today. More stories, Ma said, and her chopstick struck the inside of her empty rice bowl resentfully. Haven't we had enough of those? Now, wife, Ba said again, stories cost us nothing. And gain us nothing as well, Ma said. There was stony silence as Ba looked sadly into his rice bowl. Minley tugged at his sleeve. Please, Ba, she said. Ma shook her head and sighed, but said nothing, so Ba began. The story of the old man of the moon. Once there was a magistrate who was quite powerful and proud. He was so proud that he demanded constant respect from his people. Whenever he made a trip out of the city, no matter what time of day or night, people were to leave their homes, get on their knees, and make deep bows as he passed, or else face the brutal punishment of his soldiers. The magistrate was fierce in his anger as well as his pride. It is said he even expected the monkeys to come down from the trees to bow to him. The magistrate was harsh with his subordinates, ruthless to his enemies, and pitiless to his people. All feared his wrath, and when he roared his orders, the people trembled. Behind his back, they called him Magistrate Tiger. Magistrate Tiger's most coveted wish was to be of royal blood. His every decision was crafted for that purpose. Every manipulation was part of a strategy to achieve acceptance into the imperial family. That means the royal family. As soon as his son was born, he began to make trips and inquiries to gain influence, in hopes that he could marry his son to a member of the imperial family. One night, as the magistrate traveled through the mountains, again on a trip to gain favor for his son's future marriage, he saw an old man sitting alone in the moonlight. The old man ignored the passing horses and carriages, the silk brocade, and the government seal, and simply continued reading a large book in his lap, placidly fingering a bag of red string beside him. The old man's indifference infuriated Magistrate Tiger, and he ordered the carriage to stop. However, even the halting noises did not make the old man look up. Finally, Magistrate Tiger exited his carriage and went to the old man, who was still engrossed in his book. Do you not bow to your magistrate? He roared. The old man continued to read. What are you reading that is so important? The magistrate demanded, and looked at the pages of the book. It was full of scribbles and scrawls that were not of any language the magistrate knew of. Why, it's just nonsense written in there. Nonsense, said the old man, finally looking up. You fool, this is the Book of Fortune. It holds all the knowledge of the world, the past, the present, and future. The magistrate again looked at the marks on the page. I cannot read it, he said. Of course not. the man said. But I, the old man of the moon, guardian of the book of fortune, can read it. And with it, I can answer any question in the world. You can answer any question in the world? The magistrate scoffed. Very well. Who will my son marry when he is of age? The old man of the moon flipped the pages of the book. He said to himself. Ah, yes, here it is. Your son's future wife is now the 2-year-old daughter of a grocer in the next village. The daughter of a grocer, the magistrate spat. Yes, the old man of the moon continued. Right now, she is wrapped in a blue blanket embroidered with white rabbits, sitting on the lap of her blind grandmother in front of her house. No, the magistrate said, I won't allow it. It's true, the old man said. They are destined to be husband and wife. I myself tied the red cord that binds them. What red cord? Magistrate Tiger demanded. Do you know nothing? I tie together everyone who meets with these red threads. The old man sighed, holding up his bag full of red string. When you were born, I tied your ankle to your wife's ankle with a red thread. And as you both grew older, the line became shorter until you eventually met. All the people you've met in your life have been brought to you by the red cords I tied. I must have forgotten to tie the end of one of the lines, which is why you are meeting me now. I won't do that again. I don't believe you, the magistrate said. Believe or don't believe, the old man said, standing up and putting the big book on his back. We have reached the end of our thread, and I will now leave. The magistrate stared in dumbfounded silence as the old man of the moon walked away up the mountain. Crazy old man, the magistrate said finally. What a waste of my time. The magistrate returned to his carriage and continued on. But as they drove through the next village, he saw an old blind woman holding a baby girl in front of a house. The girl was wrapped in a blue blanket embroidered with white rabbits, just as the old man of the moon had said. Magistrate Tiger burned with anger. I will not let my son marry a grocer's daughter, he vowed. So, after he arrived at his guest house, the magistrate secretly ordered one of his servants to return to the grocer's home and stab the girl with a knife. That will take care of her, he thought to himself. Many years later, Magistrate Tiger had his dream fulfilled. He was finally able to obtain a match for his son with one of the emperor's many granddaughters, and his son would inherit the rule of a remote city. On the wedding day, Magistrate Tiger bragged to his son about how he had arranged the marriage and outwitted the old man of the moon. The son, who was not like his father, said nothing. But after the wedding ceremony, he sent a trusted servant to find the grocer's family to make amends. In the meantime, he became acquainted with his bride and was happy to find that both were pleased with each other. He found his new wife beautiful, the only oddity about her being that she always wore a delicate flower on her forehead. Dear wife, he said, why do you always wear that flower? Even to sleep, you never remove it. It is to hide my scar, she said, touching her forehead in embarrassment. When I was a child, no older than 2, a strange man stabbed me with a knife. I survived, but I still have this scar. And at that moment, the trusted servant came rushing in. Master, he said, I made the inquiries that you asked for. In a flood many years ago, the grocer's family perished, except for the daughter. The king of the city, the emperor's 9th son, then adopted the daughter and raised her as his own. And that daughter is your wife. So the old man of the moon was right, Minley said. Of course he was, Boss replied. The old man of the moon knows everything and can answer any question you ask. I should ask him how to bring fortune to our house, Minley said. He would know. I'll ask him. Where do I find him? They say he lives on top of Never Ending Mountain, Ba said. But no one I have ever spoken to knows where that is. Maybe we can find out, Minley said. Oh, Minley, Ma said impatiently. Bringing fortune to our house? Making fruitless mountain bloom? You're always wishing to do impossible things. Stop believing stories and stop wasting your time. Stories are not a waste of time, Ba said. Stories, Ma said, slapping her hands against the table, making the water in the fishbowl sway as she stood up and left the table, are what wasted money on this goldfish. Minley stared down at her rice bowl. The few white grains left sat like precious pearls at the bottom of her bowl. Ba patted her arm. Eat all your rice, daughter, he said. And with his shaking hands, he scooped the last of his own rice to feed the fish. Chapter 4. That night, Minley could not sleep. Ma's words echoed in her ears, and when she closed her eyes, she saw Ba's hand shaking from hard work, feeding the goldfish. Ma is right, Minley thought to herself. The goldfish is just another mouth to feed. I can't let Ba feed the goldfish. Ma and Ba work so hard for every grain and rice. Ba shouldn't have to feed the goldfish too. Minley slipped quietly out of her bed and crept to the table where the goldfish was. They stared at each other, and Minley knew what she had to do. Quickly slipping on her shoes and jacket, she took the goldfish and left the house. It was late. The village was quietly asleep, and the stars above filled the sky like spilled salt on dried seaweed. Minley's footsteps seemed to hush the night as she made her way toward the Jade River. At the edge of the river, Minley looked at her goldfish one last time. The moon shone above, so even in the darkness of the night, the fish seemed to burn a bright orange. Its black eyes sparkled at her. I'm sorry I can't keep you, Minley whispered. I hope you will be all right in the river. And with those words, she emptied the bowl into the river. For a moment, the fish seemed shocked and was still like a flickering flame on a match. Then it wiggled in the water and swam in circles, a joyful fire twirling in the water. Minley watched it and sighed. As the sound faded into the night, Minley realized it was an echo of her mother's impatient, frustrated noise. Ma will never stop sighing unless our fortune changes. But how will it ever change? Minley asked ruefully. I guess that is just another question for the old man of the moon. Too bad no one knows how to get to Never Ending Mountain to ask him anything. The fish stopped swimming and looked up at Minley. I know where it is, it said. The female voice was high and soft, like the wind whistling through the reeds of the water. Minley stared. Did you say something? She asked. Yes, the fish said. I know how you can get to Never Ending Mountain and ask the old man of the moon a question. You're a talking fish? Minley asked, her words tumbling into each other with excitement. How can you talk? Most fish talk, the fish said, if you are willing to listen. One, of course, must want to hear. I do, Minley said, enthralled and eager. This was just like one of Ba's stories. She bubbled with excitement. How do you know the way to Never Ending Mountain? I've swum all the oceans and rivers except for one, the fish said. And on my way to the last, the goldfish man caught me. I despaired in his cart, for I have seen and learned much of the world, including the way to Never Ending Mountain. Since you have set me free, I will tell you. You've swum all the oceans and rivers? Minley asked. The question spilled like overflowing water. Which river haven't you seen? Why have you traveled so much? Where is Never Ending Mountain? When did... This river is the one river I have not swum, the fish interrupted, and I have waited a long time to see it, so I would like to start as soon as possible. You can ask the old man of the moon all your other questions, Let me tell you the way to him so I can be off. Minli nodded and asked to know more. She realized she was having a conversation with a goldfish, which was very unusual. So she decided to listen. Chapter 5. The next morning, Minli felt as if her head was spinning with thoughts and plans. She was so busy thinking and plotting that she barely noticed her parents nodding sadly at each other when they saw the empty fishbowl. And in the fields, when Minli worked as if in a daze, her parents said nothing about her slow and messy planting. When the sun began to set and Minli went home to make dinner, she quickly washed and made the rice. Then she set the table for 2 people, sat down, and wrote this note. Dear Ma and Ba, I am going to Never-Ending Mountain to ask the old man of the moon how I can change our fortune. I might be away for many days, but don't worry, I will be fine. When I come back, we will be able to fill our house with gold and jade. Love, your obedient daughter, Minli. The obedient part isn't completely true, Minli thought to herself, as she knew her parents would not be happy to find her gone. But it's not false either. They didn't say I couldn't go, so I'm not being disobedient. Still, Minli knew that wasn't entirely right either. But she shook away her uneasy feelings and prepared for her journey. On a blanket, she put a needle, a pair of chopsticks, her white rabbit rice bowl, a small piece of dried bamboo, a hollow gourd of water, a small knife, a fish net, some uncooked rice, a large pot, and the one remaining copper coin. That's 10 things she brought with her. Then she wrapped her blanket into a bag, tied it on her back, and took one last look at the shabby house. Through the window, Fruitless Mountain stood like a shadow. But Minli closed her eyes and imagined the house shimmering with gold and the mountain jade green with trees, and smiled. Then she opened the door and left. Chapter 6. As Minli left the house, she was afraid some of her neighbors would stop her or ask where she was going. She felt she must look mysterious, with a large bag on her back and full of excitement. But no one noticed her. The neighbors kept sweeping their doorways, hanging their laundry, and preparing dinner. A boy and girl continued their fight over a pretend feast of mud. When the mother called them for dinner, both refused to move, each clinging to their dishes of wet dirt. Minli had to smile at their foolishness. So Minli walked right out of the village without causing a second glance. At the edge of the village, she turned toward Fruitless Mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, she unwrapped her blanket and took out her knife, needle, rice bowl, bamboo piece, and jug of water. Then, trying to remember all of the goldfish's instructions, she cracked off a small bit of stone and rubbed it up and down the needle 99 times before tossing it back to the ground. Then she filled her rice bowl halfway with water and let the bamboo float in it. After that, she picked up the needle and looked at the white rabbit on her bowl. Okay, she said to the jumping rabbit, lead the way. And she placed the needle onto the bamboo. Like magic, the needle spun around. Minli smiled. Thank you, Minli said again to the painted rabbit. Now I'll follow where you want me to go. Minli packed up her things and, carefully holding the bowl in her hand, walked in the direction of the needle past Fruitless Mountain. Goodbye, Jade Dragon, Minli said as she left. When I come back, I will know how to make you happy again. Minli walked, and the stony land slowly turned into forest. Even when the moon was high in the sky, she continued. I want to make sure I walk far enough that if Ma and Ba begin to look for me, they can't find me, Minli said to herself. The fallen leaves made a soft carpet for her feet, and the night birds flew into the sky as she passed. Only when the sky lightened to gray and the sun began to peek over the horizon did Minli sit down and rest against a tall tree. She had traveled deep into the forest, far from her village and her home. She was so tired that she quickly fell asleep. And that is where we're going to stop for today.